Youth, they're impetuous, aren't they? When I started this channel in 2018, when I was 40, in my excitement with the new channel and starting this series, I neglected to cover the sequels to some of the games I covered early on. My early channel was really weird. I started with a Master System look, even though I still to this day haven't covered any Master System games, and I did little three-way fights between games based on TV shows. It was rubbish, almost as bad as this intro, of which I've got no excuse for as I'm reading it out now. I'm experienced and a gracious lover though. So, as a neat throwback, I'll be using footage from the old videos when I talk about the TV shows on which these games are based, and it also allows me to be really lazy and let my 4-year-ago self do all the work like it's some sort of time-travelled donkey. And I'm all about that kind of thing. So let's do these games in reverse order from when we originally covered them, shall we? And the reason for this is that it allows me to get the absolute worst game of the video out of the way first. Take it away, 2018 me. Far away, please, as this is going to be about Countducular II. Yeah. Count Duckula was originally a recurring villain in Cosgrove Studios' Danger Mouse, and was given his own spin-off show on ITV that lasted from 1988 to 1993. It was voiced by Danger Mouse alum and Trotter independent trader himself, David Jason. The Duckula of the eponymous series was notably different from his original mouse-bothering incarnation, notably because the night-crawling fowl of the spin-off was a mild-mannered vegetarian, as opposed to the bloodthirsty freak of the Danger Mouse series. Accompanied by his dissatisfied butler Igor and his loyal nanny, who, by the way, has to be played by Miranda Hart in any live-action version, Duckula travels around the world in his teleporting castle as he searches for riches and fame. It's utterly charming, though not quite as serenely brilliant as its companion series Danger Mouse. It's aged a lot better than a lot of other animated series of the time, and I'd say it's worth checking out. Countducular II. It's hard not to go full AVGN on this one. It is dire. And it's a platform game by Alternative Software, who are pretty much this series' version of Bulldog in Frasier. They're not in every episode, but whatever episode they're in is infinitely worse. Sorry, Bulldog fans. So yes, Alternative have come to smear perhaps their stinkiest arse egg onto my upper lip. The first game was a passable monochrome platformer, nothing particularly exciting, but a good waste of a Saturday afternoon for the lowly entry fee of just £2.99. You can't go far wrong with a £2.99 game, can you? Yes, you can. You're about to discover why. Playing Countducular II is your time stolen. It feels like it's been stolen like you're one of the children from the Fritzl family, and I feel I can get away with that joke now because it was so long ago. That's the second to last episode, so who cares? Duckula is on a space adventure on the planet Cute, and it is full of fluffy denizens who are determined to snap off his beak and shove it up his watertight bum. The game starts with you aboard a rocket made from the castle tower, and it's a pretty short and very dire vertical scrolling shoot 'em up, so it is. Which actually turns out to be the game's highlight. The rest of the game you see is a platformer. The very worst section of the very worst level of the very worst platform game. But for its entire duration. Yes, it's a whole game of those really annoying bits in platformers where the platforms slowly disappear and appear in a sequential order. It is cripplingly slovenly to play, the antithesis of a game such as Sonic the Hedgehog or Super Mario World. It's a game of waiting around and then using the poor controls to leap between platforms. Platforms that you'll miss, that you'll misjudge, and you'll have a miserable time for the entire duration. So you better remember the sequences or you'll fall to your doom. It's really not very good at all, and I don't even want to talk about it anymore. Again, a bit like the tortured family of Joseph Fritzl. Yep, went back to that well again. Your Sinclair gave it an apocalyptic 9% and said that aiming this at a younger gamer is no excuse. What makes Alternative think they can get away with giving younger players such a rubbish game? Sinclair user could only recommend it to those who are fans of the TV series or are true platform fanatics, and they gave it a very gracious 64%. I don't know why they just didn't recommend it to perverts, because you'd have to be a pervert to enjoy this game. It is bloody shite. While we're on the subject of bad games, SuperGran was a particularly bad effort from Tynesoft. But before we get to the sequel, let's go back to me from episode 3 and find out what that TV show was all about. It's about an octogenarian who's got superpowers. Based on a series of books, SuperGran is a North East England-based children's comedy that ran from 1985 to 1987. It's probably most famous for having a theme tune sung by Billy Connolly, the comedian who had a face like most dogs owned by old people. In the song, Billy informs us that SuperGran is more than a match for the characters from both the DC and Marvel universe, which makes her a prime candidate for being the chief villain in Avengers 7. It's very much a product of its time, but it's good, innocent fun with some very tricky to understand Geordie accents for us weak southern fairies to translate. Incredibly, the actress who played SuperGran is still alive at the time of recording this. Hopefully she doesn't die. That's one superpower that Billy Connolly didn't sing about. Who knows the limits of SuperGran's power? Immortality is certainly one. Please don't die. Thanks, much younger me. Did you know also Gudrun You're still alive, by the way, the actress who played SuperGran? Who'd have thunk it? So the sequel to SuperGran is SuperGran The Adventure, and it is surprisingly a lot better than the arcade game, which was covered in episode 3. It was programmed by Brian Harworth from Adventure International, who worked on the Quest Probe Marvel games. Trust me, Tynesoft are better when they publish games rather than when they program them themselves. Auf Wiedersehen, pet. The lexicon is a wee bit fiddly at times, but the adventure is reasonably fun with a well-paced plot. Scunner Campbell gets one over on dear old Gudrun Ure at the start, and soon Gran is building her strength up in hospital with porridge because she's Scottish, and as we all know, Scottish people just eat that, the stomachs of animals, and drink orange pond water soaked in iron girders, and don't you try and deny it. The puzzles are decent, they make reasonable sense, and it doesn't look too offensive, does it? It's a good-looking adventure game. It's a step up, certainly, from those unofficial games I covered in episode 98. Just the one review for SuperGran The Adventure, this time from CMVG, who gave it a 7 out of 10 and said, after a shaky start, it is enjoyable to play. And so with the final 2 games, we're going back to episode 1 for those last 2. I barely had pubic hair back then when I was 40. I'd show you, but I'll get a channel banned before episode 100, and that would just be another failure in a lifetime full of them. As if I don't get banned for those earlier Joseph Fritzl jokes. Anyway, AirWolf II. Here's what AirWolf was all about. Back in the 1980s on your old telly box. Take it away, me. Stern-looking pilots. Macho synth score that makes your balls heavy with testosterone. Impossible turbo speed boosts. Explosions that they would repeatedly use because it was cheaper than to film new ones each time. Pigs. Not really. I made that bit up. Yes, it's AirWolf, one of those US action series like A-Team and Knight Rider, which were extremely popular in the mid to late 80s. Running from 1984 until 1987, first with Jan Michael Vincent in the pilot seat and later Dick Van Dyke's son Barry. Alright, mate! AirWolf saw a crew undertake various missions with an espionage feel, until it was required to blow the ever-living honky-tonk out of trucks and bases with a helicopter that looked like the best toy that your parents couldn't afford to buy you for Christmas. What a great premise! And so this is AirWolf 2. AirWolf 2 originally came out in a triple pack of games called Trio, courtesy of a company called Hitpack, though it did eventually come out on its own via a budget re-release from Encore. And what to say about AirWolf 2? You might have noticed something. A helicopter. In space. A helicopter in space. Why do you hate basic physics, Stringfellow Hawk? Did a science teacher touch you in your little hawky Stringfellow-y place? Goodness me. A helicopter in space. Dear oh dear oh dear. It is a scrolling shoot-'em-up, but it looks like we're going the wrong way. Why are you doing this, Stringfellow Hawk? Did Gradius or R-Type touch you in your private place? Goodness me. Going the wrong way in a scrolling shoot-'em-up. No one goes that way. AirWolf 2 is very much what I call a very bland Spectrum scrolling shoot-'em-up. One of those where the enemy vessels are simple shapes that rotate or whatever, rather than resembling actual vehicles, and one where the level changes are denoted by the colour of the screen changing. There's shooting, there's power-ups, there's gun emplacements, and the game just sort of ends at some point after you've plodded through enough of it. It's as bang average a scrolling shoot-'em-up as you could ever hope to play. Other than having a helicopter in space, it is creatively bankrupt, a beige game, and probably needs marking down for the fact there's a helicopter in space. Just the one review of this, and that was when it was part of the Trio collection, and that was in Crash issue 43, where it got a 61%. Finally, let's finish with the sequel to what I consider probably the greatest TV adaptation on the ZX Spectrum, that being TrapDoor. So, hello 2018 me, could you tell me what's going on with all this bloody plasticine shuffling about? TrapDoor was a brilliant claymation kid show which ran on ITV from 1984 until 1986. It centred around the kitchen of a massive Gothic castle and the affable Burke, a lowly blue servant to the mysterious and almost certainly evil thing upstairs. Burke has a tendency to be a forgetful nincompoop and often opens the eponymous trapdoor, which usually releases a monster from the bowels of the castle. This tends to cause Burke all kinds of issues when it comes to doing his daily duties for the thing upstairs, who has a very short temper. Don Priestley and his big sprites have returned with TrapDoor's sequel called Through the Trapdoor. Guess what happens in this? Yes, Burke goes in to the trapdoor. Could you guess from that title? Oh, I bet you did, you're a canny young lad. Now, Burke is, but no one's Burke, but he wouldn't normally do this because it's full of complete dickheads and ghastly day-ruining monsters. But his pal, Boney, has been kidnapped, or rather skull-napped, by a headless skeleton and dragged into the trapdoor. Personally, I think that seems like a good match, but there you go. Maybe Boney was hoping for a romance with someone else, like a nice Jewish girl, or a pig, or a fridge. I don't know what skulls are into. It's a two-character adventure, as at times you'll be playing as Drut, the very springy, leg-deficient spider. You can swap between Burke and Drut at will, and you'll need both Burke and Drut to combine their skills to liberate their chum from the hell pit. The graphics are very similar to the original, which is no bad thing, though it's no longer manoeuvrable in all directions, meaning it takes place on a 2D plane. Is it as good as TrapDoor 1? No, not really. Lining up Drut so he can leap up into the air with the greatest of ease is extremely clunky at times because you have to get in exactly the right place. So you'll be doing a lot of left and right shuffling so that the springy spider can hit the right spot. And unfortunately it shares the same sort of very slow responding controls from the first game. Now, while they didn't really affect the first game as much because you didn't have like an energy bar to protect, they still can be a game ruining experience. Now, it's still a very good effort and it's definitely the best game out of this clutch, with SuperGran The Adventure game coming second. Crash said in their issue 47 that it was another superb adaptation of the TV series, though its appeal comes from its graphics more than its addictive gameplay. They gave it a 70%. Your Sinclair gave it an 8 out of 10 in their issue 25, saying it was a hard adventure with the Don Priestley signature all over it. Sounds a bit sexual. Sinclair user in their issue, this sounds sexual, 69, 69, eh? They gave it a 7 out of 10 and said that it was a worthy successor. Well, that's it. Done. Every single Spectrum TV adaptation that was released officially has been covered, even some that weren't as official. That's all of them. All of them are done. So what now? Well, I have to finish on a nice round number, don't I? And that's going to be episode 100. But how do we end this series, considering that we've covered all the games? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a good old-fashioned ranking list. That's ranking list. That way people won't have to watch all the other videos. I'm kind like that, aren't I? So that's exciting, and it's like Christmas Day. So until then, like, subscribe, and thanks, bye.